with you guys today. It's just never good enough for the greedy, entitled players in the WNBA. It's just never good enough. Salaries increasing 4x. Salary cap, massive improvement. Additional roster spots to teams. Housing for the league minimum players. Housing for the relief contract players. It's just not good enough. So you know what? Go ahead. Go on strike. Hold your picket signs.
Listen to that tone. That's not analysis. That's frustration boiling over. And he's not alone, because right now, the WNBA is staring down a crisis that could cancel the entire 2025 season. Training camps are supposed to start April 19th. Opening night is scheduled for May 8th. And as of today, there's no collective bargaining agreement in place. Players can't sign contracts. Teams can't finalize rosters. The clock is ticking, and the gap between what players are demanding and what owners are offering isn't shrinking. It's getting wider.
Make small concessions in the latest CBA proposal. Small concessions on top of the massive concessions they've already given up. They've already increased what their max deal was going to be. Remember, first reported around 800,000, then 1 million, then 1.1, now 1.3. Housing, they wanted to get rid of housing. No, if you're a relief player, now you got housing. If you make the minimum, now you got housing. So the owners have already came a long way. It's the players and their non-negotiables.
There's the sticking point. 30% of gross revenue, not net revenue, after expenses, gross revenue before the league pays for anything. And that number isn't coming from some random player on Twitter. That's the official position from Brianna Stewart, vice president of the Women's National Basketball Players Association. She told CBS Sports in early February that revenue sharing is non-negotiable. Those are her exact words. Non-negotiable, which means unless the owners cave on this specific demand, we're looking at a work stoppage. Let's put that 30% demand in context. The league's December proposal offered players roughly 70% of net revenue. That's revenue after operating expenses are deducted. The players rejected it. They want 30% of the top line before expenses. That would push the salary cap from $5 million to around $10.5 million per team. It would raise the max salary from $1.3 million to $2.5 million. Essentially, they're asking for double what the league offered.
Updates for players per Stewart. The Executive Committee for the Women's National Basketball Players Association held a call Sunday to discuss the WNBA's latest collective bargaining agreement proposal, which arrived on Friday. The EC wanted to really understand everyone's point of view and, quote, get on the same page about what we're asking for. WNBPA Vice President Brianna Stewart told CBS Sports in an exclusive interview Monday. The WNBA's proposal, the league's first response to the players' latest offer, which came more than 6 weeks ago, quote, didn't move much money-wise, Stewart said, but, quote, there were some minimum standard requirements that did come in.
And here's what makes this particularly complicated. The owners have already moved significantly from their initial position when negotiations started. Reports suggested the max salary would be around $800,000. Then it went to $1 million. Then $1.1 million. The current offer sits at $1.3 million in year one, scaling up to $2 million by the end of the deal. The minimum salary jumped from $140,000 to $230,000. That's a 64% increase for minimum players. But it's still not enough, because the players aren't just negotiating for higher salaries. They're negotiating for a fundamentally different revenue model. They want to be partners, not employees. They want a percentage of every dollar that comes in, not a percentage of what's left after the league pays its bills.
He provided a one-bedroom apartment for the first 3 years of the CBA, while developmental players would be provided a studio apartment, a source familiar with negotiations confirmed to CBS Sports. Listen to how crazy that sounds. Minimum salary still making $250K. And the league is still paying for your apartment for the first 3 years. A minimum salary that you're still making nearly $250,000, the league is still paying for your housing. Moving along. Those players would receive a stipend plus money for
housing has been one of the other major sticking points. And here's where the league actually made concessions. The latest proposal, delivered to players on February 21st, includes guaranteed one-bedroom apartments for all first-year players and minimum salary players for the first 3 years of the CBA. Developmental contract players would get studio apartments. This goes beyond what teams were previously required to provide. Now, the league has technically offered housing since 1999. Teams had to provide either a one-bedroom apartment or a housing stipend, but the new proposal standardizes it and extends the guarantee to 3 years for minimum players. For context, minimum salary players are making $230,000. The league is paying for their housing on top of that $250,000 salary. But even with these concessions on housing and facility standards, the revenue-sharing gap remains. And that's where this entire negotiation lives or dies.
They could if they wanted to, but they didn't have to. And they're making, and in Diana Taurasi's case, she's making millions overseas in Russia. Brittany Griner, she got free housing in Russia. No, we'll move on to the next one. Key stakeholders from the Players Association and WNBA, including multiple owners, met in person February 2nd for their first time since October. During that meeting, housing concerns and facility standards were two issues the players wanted to resolve. While the players were frustrated that the league did not arrive at that meeting with a counter-proposal to the union's latest offer, the league has since responded with a proposal that's...
February 2nd was the first in-person meeting between key stakeholders since October. 4 months between face-to-face negotiations, the players came to that meeting wanting to resolve housing and facility standards. The league showed up without a counter-proposal to the union's latest offer, which frustrated the players. But then on February 21st, almost 3 weeks later, the league finally responded with updated terms that addressed some of those housing and facility concerns. Breanna Stewart acknowledged to CBS Sports that the league heard us on things that matter to us. That's significant. It means the owners are negotiating in good faith, at least on mom issues. But then she added that the proposal didn't move much money-wise. Translation, they're still miles apart on revenue sharing.
$2.5 million. So they want double the WNBA's proposed salary cap. They want double the WNBA's proposed maximum salary. These girls are on angel dust. Ain't no other way to put it. Last month, the WNBA announced the full schedule of the 2026 season. Training camps are scheduled to begin on April 19th, with preseason games to begin on April 25th and opening night set for May 8th. Quote, time is of the essence, Stewart said. Stewart added that she doesn't know if there's a drop-dead date, at which the point the league will no longer be able to start the season on time if there's no CBA in place. However, she made it clear that everyone knows that they're running out of time and need to...
That quote right there reveals something important about how the players are approaching these negotiations. Stewart admits she doesn't know if there's a drop-dead date where the season would have to be postponed if no deal is reached. Think about that. You're the vice president of the Players Union. You're making demands that could cancel the season, and you don't know the deadline for when that cancellation becomes inevitable? That's either a negotiating tactic, playing dumb to avoid pressure, or it's genuine lack of preparation. Either way, it's not a good look, because if you're going to hold the line on non-negotiables, you better know exactly how much time you have before your leverage evaporates. Training camps start April 19th. That's less than 2 months away. Players need time to report, get physicals, sign contracts. Teams need time to finalize rosters and make cuts. The league needs time to promote opening night. Every day without a deal makes it harder to start on time.
Quote, I think that both sides are very aware that this has gone on way longer than it needed to, Stewart said, but hopefully we can really start to be hearing each other and they hear us on things that are, quote, non-negotiables. Non-negotiables being rev share. The league can give up everything. If these ladies don't get that 30%, I am going on strike.
And there it is. The players are ready to strike over 30% gross revenue. They're willing to put the entire season in jeopardy. They're willing to walk away from guaranteed salaries, from housing, from the massive increases the league has already offered. All for a different revenue model. Now, let's be clear about what a strike would mean. The owners are billionaires. They own NBA teams, real estate empires, tech companies. Whether the WNBA plays this season or not, they'll be fine financially. In fact, some of them might prefer a canceled season. The league has been subsidized by the NBA for years. It's never turned a profit. A year without WNBA operations means a year without losses. The players, on the other hand, don't have that luxury. Most of them aren't millionaires. They rely on WNBA salaries to pay bills, support families, build financial security. Yes, some stars can play overseas and make good money, but not everyone gets those opportunities. And even overseas leagues have their own labor issues and financial instability.
Negotiable 30% rev share. Are they going to come down? We'll see. But as of right now, they're ready to put the whole league in jeopardy for a few dollars. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video and subscribe to the channel.
So here's where we are. The league has increased maximum salaries by 62% from initial reports. They've raised minimum salaries by 64%. They've guaranteed housing for young players and minimum salary players. They've improved facility standards. They've offered 70% of net revenue, which is a legitimate partnership model used in other leagues, and the players have said it's not good enough because they want 30% of gross revenue, which would fundamentally change the financial structure of the league. They want to get paid before the league covers its operating costs, before it pays for arenas, travel, marketing, staff salaries, broadcast production. They want a cut of every dollar that comes in the door, regardless of whether the league is profitable. Is that reasonable? It depends on your perspective. If you believe the WNBA is on the verge of massive growth, expansion teams selling for $50 million, new media deals, sold-out arenas, then locking in a percentage of gross revenue makes sense. You're betting on the future. If you believe the league is still finding its footing financially, still dependent on NBA subsidies, still losing money most years, then the owner's offer of 70% of net revenue seems more than fair. The players clearly believe in the former. They see Caitlin Clark's impact on ratings and attendance. They see expansion teams in Portland, Toronto, and San Francisco. They see new broadcast deals and corporate sponsorships. They think the league is about to explode, and they want to make sure they're compensated accordingly. The owners, apparently, are more cautious. They're willing to pay more, they're willing to improve conditions, but they're not willing to commit to a revenue model that could bankrupt teams if growth doesn't materialize as expected. And that's the fundamental disconnect. It's not about greed on either side, it's about risk. The players want the owners to take on more financial risk by guaranteeing a percentage of gross revenue. The owners want the players to share that risk by tying compensation to net revenue. Neither side is budging, and the calendar isn't waiting for them to figure it out. Here's what happens next. Either the players accept something closer to the league's current offer, or the owners cave on revenue sharing, or we don't have a season. There's no middle ground. When one side calls something non-negotiable, that word means exactly what it sounds like. No negotiation. Take it or leave it. Breanna Stewart told CBS Sports that both sides are very aware that this has gone on way longer than it needed to. She's right about that. The previous CBA expired in October. We're now in late February. 5 months of negotiations, and they're still stuck on the same issue they started with. The question is whether the players are willing to sacrifice a season to prove their point, because that's what non-negotiable means in practice. It means you're prepared to walk away. It means you're prepared to lose money, lose momentum, lose fans, lose everything you've built, rather than compromise on this one issue. Is 30% of gross revenue worth canceling a season? Is it worth risking the league's growth trajectory? Is it worth potentially damaging relationships with fans who are just starting to pay attention? The players seem to think so. And maybe they're right. Maybe this is the moment to draw a line at the sand. Maybe this is when they establish themselves as true partners in the business, not just employees collecting paychecks. Maybe this is when they force the owners to invest in the league's future by committing to a revenue model that rewards everyone when the league succeeds. Or maybe this is a massive miscalculation. Maybe they're overestimating their leverage. Maybe they're underestimating how quickly fan enthusiasm can evaporate when there's no product on the court. Maybe they're betting on growth that won't materialize fast enough to justify the risk. We'll find out soon enough, because April 19th is coming whether they're ready or not. And if there's no deal by then, we're going to see exactly how committed both sides are to their positions. The owners will find out if they're willing to restart negotiations after missing a season. The players will find out if solidarity holds when paychecks stop coming. One thing's for certain, this isn't how you build momentum. The WNBA just had its best season ever. Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented attention to the league. Ratings were up across the board, attendance hit record level, corporate sponsors were lining up. And now, instead of capitalizing on that momentum, we're talking about a potential work stoppage. That's the real cost of these negotiations. Not just the money on the table, but the opportunity cost of wasting this moment. Because moments like this don't come around often in sports. And when they do, you can't afford to squander them arguing over revenue models while the world moves on to something else. So where do you stand? Are the players right to hold the line on 30% gross revenue, or are the owners right to stick with their offer of 70% net revenue? Because somebody's gonna have to blink, and whoever blinks first is gonna get crucified by their side for giving in. Let me know what you think in the comment. And if you want to see how this plays out, subscribe because we'll be covering every development as we get closer to that April